What's up, everybody? Pete the Hybrid Guy back here. We're actually now in the third part of this where we're going to get in and we're going to start actually refinishing the headlight so you can see how the process is done so you can replicate it as well. This particular headlight has had a coating placed on it, which we're going to have to get off initially so we can actually refinish this headlight the proper way and get the result that we want, which is a nice, clean, factory, good-looking headlight so we can get that clarity and a much better looking car. So the first pad that I have on here right now is the 500 grit, and this again is out of the 3M headlight restoration system, which in my first video I have links to all of these, all the different products that you would need to do this job the right way. And some of them you just have to buy one time, like a spray bottle, and if you don't already have a drill, yeah, it's handy. You can use it for multiple other things as well besides just finishing headlights. So we're going to start off with the 500, and I'm going to walk around the headlight and bring this down and then kind of explain to you what I'm doing as I stop periodically. So here we go. And you can see right here, like I explained in my last video, this stuff doesn't really ever bond if the surface hasn't been prepped right. So you can see that it's wanting to come right off, and you can see how yellowed it's made this headlight. So this is going to be a real good job. It's important while you're walking around there not to put too much pressure on the headlight. Clean your pad off with your terry towel pretty frequently in order to keep the dirt and dust building up in there. Because once this gets clogged up, it doesn't do a very good job. And then find which direction you like better. I switch back and forth depending on the drill motor that I'm using. I may like one way over another, and so I just try that out as I go along. So I'm going to take a quick stop here. I'm going to wipe this off again. Notice that my drill, I'm trying to keep it at a very consistent speed, so I avoid heating up the pad or the light and causing burn marks on there, which can be very easy to do if you've never done this before. But just keep telling yourself you can do this and take it nice and easy. Just go a consistent speed and you'll have really good results. So in the kit we get several of these. We get about 6 of them, which means you get about 3 per headlight. If you clean your pad regularly, you can extend the life of it, but you want to kind of make sure that you check the surface of it regularly to make sure that it still has some grit on there. If it doesn't seem like it's really doing anything, it's probably time to change that pad out. With as much top layer as we pulled off of here, I'm going to go ahead and change the pad to a new one so we can take the rest of this junk off. And then I'm going to do a third one to make sure that we really get a good base buff, a good deep clean on these first passes. And the reason being is every step that we take builds upon the next one. So if we do a really good job here with this first step with the 500s, that means when we go to do the 800s, we're going to see it be clearer and clearer every step that we go up from there. So the better job we do here, the better job the 800 is going to do, and so on. Can really start to see that we've cleaned up a lot of that crappy overlay that was on here, but we still have a bit to go with this different color. So we're going to keep going down a little bit more. This pad's not quite worn out yet, so I'm going to do a little bit more and then switch pads one more time. And this right here is a perfect example of going too fast and your pad getting too loaded or getting damaged, because it will leave stuff like this behind. And I'm kind of glad that I did that, so you can see what will happen if you don't keep your pad clean, or if your pad is honestly just ready to be changed. Your pad will let you know when that is, but what this is, this junk right here, is it's buildup that gets on there. And it pretty much comes right off, nice and easy, but it's all that dust and dirt and stuff that we're pulling off the lens. It heats up and becomes kind of a hard paste, and then it sticks right on there, and it's kind of tough. You can't really scratch it off by your nail, but you have to have a clean pad in order to get that right off. You can see for me, it came right off, so I'm glad that happened, so you could see what will happen if you're not taking those precautions like cleaning your pad and keeping the dirt and stuff off the lens as you're going along here. Now, pretty much for me, for the most part, I'm going to swap out my last pad, okay, and I've got just about all the really nasty spots off here, so I want to give it that final cleaning that it deserves, and then we'll move on to the 800s. It's also important to note that you make sure that you're not staying too long in one area. As you saw initially, I was really kind of up here and then I came back down here. It's really critical to make sure that you're hitting all areas so you get a really nice, even sanding job all over the lens. Be a little bit more diligent about keeping that clean so I don't have any big spots that I got to clean off, but you can see we're almost there. So this is pretty darn good. I don't have a lot of that yellowing, and I can feel with my hand that I've got a pretty even sand job all over that headlight lens, okay? So I'm just gonna wipe that off. Now I'm gonna jump onto my 800s and do the exact same process, just with a finer grit, so we can start to smooth out these really deep cuts that we made with the 500. Now, it is important to note here, if you have some really heavy duty stuff on there that your 500's not cutting through, 3M makes a whole bunch of variety of different grits of pads. This kit is really good for doing a lens that is just mildly yellow, that doesn't have a ton of oxidation, but you can get creative, buy other pads. You can even take some coarser stuff and sand down your headlights if you've got some real deep stuff in there that's just not coming out with those 500 grit pads. So now we're on to our 800. We're going to go do the same thing. I'm going to check periodically my pad to make sure that it's not getting a lot of buildup in it. I've got 2 pads for each side, but I'll whip through this one pretty quickly because you understand the process of what I've done on that first one, and it's pretty much identical. Threw my pad off, wipe my headlight down, and you can see on this pad you can really start to see it gets eaten up pretty quick, and we want to try and avoid that as much as possible. But these 800s, if you've done a really good 500 sand, these ones will go by pretty quick because what we're doing is just really smoothing out these hardcore areas that we got with the 500. So you can start to see that we've got a much finer finish going on here. You can start to see some of the imperfections, right? And this is why it's really critical to get down to that base. You can, if you absolutely have to, you can go back and do more base finishing if you have enough pads and stuff to do it. But for the most part, if you've done a good job on the previous step, this will come out really well. It's going to look super clean. So. Cool, so that's the last of my 800 pads, and you can buy these pads in bulk from 3M. They're a little spendy, but if you're going to do this on more of a commercial level, or just wanting to help a friend out, you can buy them and then have more if you really feel like you needed some extra time to get in and finish this. We got there, it looks like we had a little bug or something left over. And some of these imperfections you'll get out in the wet sand, which we're about to do right now. Now for me, on a lot of other jobs that I've done, I've actually got 2 different wet sanding pads. This one is a 3000, but I also like to do a 1000 wet sand, depending on how bad that lens is. But for this, we're just going to use the 3000 and show you the clarity that we can really get out of this kit for the price. And that's what it comes down to. Like this whole kit, the pads and the stuff that you saw in the 3M kit was like 12 bucks on Amazon, super inexpensive, and the result is really good for the money. Of course, yes, you can go in, you can do other interim methods between each of these 3 steps. I actually have a 7-step method that I use on really, really bad headlights, but for us that's just trying to get it done in a couple hours on a weekend so we can have some good clear lights. This is a really good method and very affordable. So I'm going to go ahead and douse my pad. I'm going to douse my light. The key to this is keeping the headlight wet. Okay, so I'm going to keep my bottle really close, and then I'm going to keep my body away from my drill because it's going to fling stuff and it'll get all over my clothes. So keep an eye out for that. As soon as I see a little bit of paste, I'm watering that thing down, and you can already start to tell how much cleaner this is going to be. It's going to look fantastic when we're done here. The great thing about these 1000 grit pads is they don't, or 3000, the wet sanding pads, is they don't really wear out. They do eventually, but not as quickly as the other ones. And if you're keeping good water on these, they last a long time, and you can use them again, and I've done it with good results. So 3M would tell you to replace them every time, which you can do, but I've been able to use these multiple times and even save a little bit more money that way. It's good to blast your pad out with water periodically. And the question that I always get is like, how do you know you're done in this step? If I can spray over my headlight and have it drop down and not have a lot of these spots showing up, I know that I'm ready to go. So I'm going to give this, I usually go 2 to 3, anywhere between 3 and 5 passes, just depending on how good a clarity I really want out of this thing. So. Now, a lot of other places will tell you like, oh yeah, I can do that, I can do it for cheap, you know, I can do it for like 20 bucks and it'll look good. They're probably not doing this process. And what's really critical about this process is to remove the oxidation that's on the lens. Okay, Yeah, you can use like a rubbing compound and make them look really good, but the root cause of the problem is still there. And that's why this process is so good, is because it removes that out of the equation so they stay clearer for longer. Of course, you do need to seal these with a UV protectant. That link for a good UV protectant that I use is listed in the links below, so make sure that you have some of that. The application is really easy. Just read on the back what it tells you to do. Super easy. I'm going to do one more pass and then we're going to get on to the rubbing compound. So you can see that my water's beating off really well. That's a good sign that I've pretty much got this thing as good as I'm going to get it. So I'm not going to use my terry towel at this point to wipe that off because I've got a bunch of dust on it. But what I am going to use is just a regular old microfiber to wipe that down so we can get the bulk of the water off, so we can do the final polish job on this thing and really bring it out to shine. I'm going to go ahead and take my 3000 off. This is where my little buffer pad comes in right here. Okay, just attaches to that drill. I'm going to take my rubbing compound. I'm just going to massage it a little bit before we tear the package open. Okay. And then I like to get it away from the open so it doesn't spill out right when I open this thing. Okay, kind of like that. What's key to note here is the amount that you're going to put on and how to kind of initially get this on, because otherwise if you just put a huge glob on like that and start going to town, it's going to get everywhere. So what I highly recommend doing is getting a glob on there and then putting it all over the headlight like this. Okay, just kind of a random pattern. And what that will do is keep it from having big globs that will fling off and get all over your clothes and all over the car and everything like that, because you can see that we get water kind of everywhere in here, which on a hybrid that can be very crazy, but this is a sealed unit and there's not a ton of water there, so we're going to be okay. So once you've done that, just go ahead and start polishing, and this is where we're going to see the magic happen. I'm going to stop right there. Going to grab my microfiber, a dry one that doesn't have water on it. I'm just going to show you what that looks like once we are all done. You can see that the clarity is restored to this lens. You can see that it's nice and clean. It looks awesome. Okay, and you can do more cutting compound, rubbing compound on here if you really want to maybe clean up a couple of areas that you might have not hit so well initially. But let's take a quick peek and see how much better this one looks as compared to the other side. So right here, you can see this one's nice and clean, beautiful, has a nice luster and shine. And over here, it still looks good, and it's kind of because of the lighting in here, but you can see, you know, all of this up here, the fadedness of it. And what we're really trying to do is we're trying to go from something like that, okay, where it's really dingy. This is even better on this side where it's really dingy, over to something that's nice, clean, really shines, and you can see all the lights in here are just resonating off of it. It looks fantastic, and this is definitely one of the best ways that you can clear that out is using this kit. So thanks everybody for watching. Please again subscribe to my links so you can get updates on different things on Toyota Prius, how-to fixes and such like that. And if you need any help, feel free to reach out to me on social media. I'm on Twitter at @thehybridguy. I'd be happy to help you out with any Prius needs, and look forward to seeing you in other videos.